Hello and welcome back to the Scale Modelling Cafe, and welcome to part 2 of the Malta Spitfire build. So if you missed part 1, you won't know that I'm actually doing this as a buddy build with a good friend of mine, Rick Lawler, a dyed-in-the-wall armour modeller, and it's going to be interesting to see how he tackles this aeroplane. But the way I tackled it at the beginning was to drill out all the lightning holes. I think this makes a massive difference to the state of the cockpit. As you can see there, you really do get that see-through look. I've also done the same on the seat mount. Now this comes moulded solid, and unfortunately I kind of rushed it a little bit, if I'm honest, and yeah, the holes don't really line up perfectly, but good enough, and it gives a good representation of the sort of punched out hollow metal. Just going in and gluing in place said seat mount. The head armour, I use the option to use the photo etch. There is a plastic one if you don't like photo etch. The mounting for this is, it's not the best actually, it's just 4 very tiny little raised rivet things. So gluing area isn't that great, but yeah, I went in with a little bit more super glue, as you can see here. Just touched it in, and actually it's fairly solid, I will say. Just making sure it all lines up. You can see it. The photo etch has been sanded on the fret as well. That's going to help with paint adhesion. There's this little thing. I'm sure the Spitfire experts can tell me exactly what it is. That was folded up and also glued in place, as was the photo etch sort of handle thing for the oxygen bottles. More drilling here. These are the lower cockpit sidewalls, and there's a little bit of structure there, and it makes a big difference actually to just deepen these holes. I didn't go all the way through, just made them a bit deeper. Now I'm using the Barracuda Studios resin cockpit snapshot upgrade, and the throttle here I actually drilled and pinned it for extra strength. Doesn't really need it if I'm honest, but you know, why not? I also added a lot of wiring, so just straightening out the wire there with a sanding stick. I like using a sanding stick because it actually grips the wire. And I did drill some holes out in the resin pieces, and just stuck it in. And the advantage of using this wire, so this is copper wire here on the gear retraction lever thing, but I did use lead wire as well. Now this is the one-piece seat. It's in place of the plastic parts. Don't worry about it being solid at the bottom, because you're not going to see any of that. And as you can see, you can simply just add the plastic kit parts to it. Now what I should have done here is use the curved blade, but I couldn't be bothered changing it, so I just struggled on manfully removing the detail with a straight blade. I did go in with sanding sticks as well. Leaving the parts on the casting block can help as well actually. Gives you a bit of a helping hand. Some of the parts are very small. And I added some extra riveting as well, so just using the Rosy riveter, I just went in and added some extra riveting, and the wash is going to bring that out quite nicely. Exactly how much of that you're going to see on the finished model, who knows. Little bits of photo etch here and there from the kit were added as well. And the instrument panel, the sort of lower part, was drilled out. And also wires added. Here's the left-hand cockpit half with the detail removed. And now we can start adding some of the detail. So this is the resin compass mount. Rudder pedals, really nicely cast, got some lovely texture on there. And I've just added the straps. And then because I'm using lots of different materials, resin and photo etch and plastic, I decided to prime everything. That's going to help with paint adhesion, but also it's going to unify all the different colours. So you can see obviously you've got the light tan, the sort of mid-grey and the shiny metal bits. It's just going to unify everything, so when you come in and do the base coat, it's going to make it much easier to get a consistent finish. Bit of masking here, so I've already done the green, that was MRP, and then the metal areas I used duralumin from Ammo A stand, and you can see I'm using the Ammo purple masking tape that's ultra low tack. And there's the other side, you can see there with the door cut out. The lower parts as well, they were done. Now it's time for a bit of detail painting. So using this dark rust colour from Ammo, I just went in and I hand painted the seat. It took a few coats, 3 coats in the end, but I prefer to do multiple thin coats, keep it all nice and smooth, and then just build up the opacity like that, rather than going in with trying to do thicker coats. And you'll note I'm painting around the detail as well. You could paint over the moulded in harness and the lever and things like that, but I left the plastic lever off, so I added the kit part to the resin part in the end, the sort of seat adjust lever. But I just prefer to paint around the details and paint them all separately. So the seat back is really nicely moulded. It's got some beautiful sort of texture and detail on it. And to pick all that out, I went in with initially just straight satin black. This is from Ammo Mk again. And then I used the figure painting technique, so just adding highlights and sort of glazes if you like. Highly thin paint, lightening up a little bit in different layers, getting lighter each time, and just picking out the raised detail. Here I'm just actually with the neat black doing the detail painting on the back. And then the final step for the seat back was I used some black wash from, that was Tamiya, and just touched it in the recesses, and that really made the detail pop. The harness, obviously it's all moulded in. This is a separate part on the top actually, so you have to clean that up and stick it on. But it's stronger than you think actually. I matched a tone to what I saw in the references, so the sort of standard buff I thought was a bit too yellowy. This was like an old wood colour. And then going in with the silver and the brass, just picking out all the detail bits, the buckles, the metal areas. And then when I finished, everything was sealed in under a varnish layer. Now obviously the advantage of this resin seat, not only is it highly detailed, but if you're not a fan of photo etch, then this is definitely the way to go. Now for some detail painting. I could have actually done this stage after the wash, but decided to do it now. So this is just Armour Mk UK interior green colour going on, which is paler than the MRP, and it does a really nice job of lifting that raised detail and making it pop. Now you'll see in a minute the other cockpit half. The instructions would have the two big square areas get you painted in black. That's incorrect. It should be interior green. And as well as picking out all the highlights in this colour, I also did the first layer of chipping, especially on things like the metal map stowage and areas of wear and tear. You can see the two sort of green squares at the top there. And here's more chipping. So with a nod to young Rick and his armour technique, I went in with the lighter green colour first, and then using the sponge and the brush with a chipping colour, like a dark brown. So yes, it's rusty. No, it probably wasn't really rusty, the real thing, but you know, I thought I'd do a nod to Rick and do some armour technique, and actually really liked it. Now these parts were steel, so who knows. So with the detail painting done, including the wiring in this sort of buff colour, the wires were glued down. So these are lead wires here, so easily formed to shape. But you do have to be careful, because this part will sit in some recesses, and if you're not careful, like I wasn't, some of the wires can actually interfere with the fit, so cause a bit of a noise. There's the throttle, and now in with some detail painting. So just picking out various bits and pieces in black. I think what you can do actually is go in with a black wash first, and that will help you sort of get right up to the edge. It can be quite tricky with these small bits and pieces to get right to the edge, and then all of a sudden you've splurged a bit too much paint on, and you have to go around in and touch things up. But yeah, I just took my time and kind of got away with it. But I think doing a black wash around some of those parts first would have definitely helped. So using a bit of tape here on this resin part, and it's easy enough to do some detail painting without getting it where you don't want it. Now actually I glued these two parts on the forward part, on the forward starboard half, a little bit too far forward, so don't copy me, put them a little bit further back, because they were too close to the instrument panel in the end. But just using a brass toothpick with a tiny bit of super glue on and lead wire, it's really easy to mould in position, but it can sort of kink, be a little bit wobbly, whereas brass wire will, it's harder to form, but the advantage is it doesn't deform like the lead wire. So this is the undercarriage selector lever going in. Again, that's the resin part from Barracuda Studios. It is more detailed than the kit part, and it is designed to sit in the moulding pips that the kit part would go in, and it fits really well. And now it's just a question of working around the cockpit, adding all these bits of resin. Now you can see there's my optivisor in shot. The eyes are starting to struggle now, so I kind of use this all the time. I must go and get some new glasses actually. I haven't had my eyes tested for 4 years. But just going around and adding the bits of wire here and there. Now I didn't have my references with me and just wanted to get it done, so I kind of guessed where these wires went. I highly recommend that you go and get some references, have a good look, and then you can make it a little bit more accurate. one really big bit in the Barracuda set is the oxygen hose, which sticks on the starboard half, and it does a really good job of filling that big hole. It's almost worth the price of admission just for that bit. But the seat is much better as well. And then just trimming off the excess wiring. I did actually use a few of the offcuts here and there just to add a bit of extra wiring. The trim wheel, that was the resin bit as well. And then going in with the wash. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that I've applied the decals. I didn't film this because I really did need the optivisor for this one, and got right in there, right in close, so I could see what I was doing. But those decals, they are absolutely tiny. But I thought it was going to be really tedious actually, but I found it quite cathartic just going around adding all these tiny little stencils and things, and again it does an amazing job of just lifting the detail. So I know I keep saying it, but the Barracuda set is I think a must for this kit. It really does lift everything. It's really comprehensive. Nothing is missed out. So just going in, this is an oil wash, actually Starship Filth, which is a sort of grey-green colour actually, and is perfect for this interior green. It matches brilliantly, and the MRP being very shiny when you put it down, actually it's a simple job when the wash is dry to just go in with a cotton bud and you can just wipe away the excess. You can see there's it's a pointy cotton bud, this one. But if there's any tricky areas, you can go in with a brush, which you'll see me in just a second going in with the brush. Mounting stuff on with some double-sided tape, but I did, in the case of the seat, end up removing it just because I found it easier to handle and get right in there. So here I am going in with the brush that I mentioned, and what you can do is actually use it to do a little bit of streaking, just to add to that sort of weathered effect. And you'll also note on the sidewalls not too much chipping. Being such a light colour, the green, it doesn't really show up that well, if I'm honest. And doing a bit of dirt streaking, so again just with the oils, just going in streaking it down. Again, another little nod to Rick using an armour technique. Now, you know, some might say, well, you're not going to get rain streaking in a cockpit. Well, first of all, yes you do, but secondly, most of the streaking would have been caused by condensation. And then when everything was done, I just went in with some VMS satin varnish just to bring it all together and just to dull everything down. I didn't want to use a matte because that would just kind of suck in all the light. But yeah, putting the varnish in is one of my favourite stages actually. It really, you do really get that scale effect. And there's that seat. You can see all the extra chipping I've done. It's wonderfully detailed, that bit. Right, the instrument panel. So here I am, gluing it the first time. It actually fell off. So you'll see me in a minute going back in with the glue. Now what I did with this photo etch panel is it's obviously colour printed, but it's really speckly. So what I ended up doing is I ended up applying some VMS matte varnish to it. You can see there I've masked the centre section because the dials are glossy, and you can see the difference it makes. It completely eliminates that speckling effect you get from the printing process. So I spray it first, and then go in and build up the panel. Here you go, look, it's fallen off, so we're going to bung some more on, some more glue, and it's slightly bent as well, so I'm just bending it back again just to maximise the gluing surface, just spreading a bit of the glue around with the edge and then gluing it back in place with more glue this time, and I'm pleased to say it's still on there. A little bit of glue on the centre section, and then this just laminates onto the front of the panel. Taking care to line it up, and there is the finished result. And you can see what a difference that the matte varnish makes. It really does kind of blend everything in and eliminates that speckly effect. So I'd added these seat mounts from steel wire. They were a little bit too long, so they did need a bit of trimming. And I did something that I said I wasn't going to do, and that was glue the side panels to the fuselage half. In the other kit I'm building, I did actually build it up in accordance with the instructions. I followed them. Whereas this is what I normally do with my Eduard Spitfires, is glue the cockpit sidewall to the fuselage halves and then add the bits and pieces, but it can complicate the fit. So yeah, just sorting out a bit of the wiring there. Yeah, just making sure that the resin just fits into the recesses. It all fits lovely, but you just need to take a bit of care. Obviously you can't use plastic cement with resin onto plastic. So super glue is the way ahead. Just applying a little bit more of the super glue here to the seat mounts, and then gluing the cockpit half onto it. So I'm sort of doing a bit of a hybrid way of putting it together. And then we're just going to fit the fuselage halves together. We're not going to glue them at this stage. What I'm doing is I'm just going to get a bit of tape, tape the fuselage halves together, and that way I can glue the cockpit parts in, and I know that it's all going to dry square and in exactly the right place. So there we are, all taped up. And I'm just going to go in with a bit of plastic cement now and just glue the bulkhead and the lower fuselage half, or the lower cockpit half, sorry, to the fuselage half, and just to eliminate any gaps. And then what I'll do is I'll then glue the fuselage halves together once the cockpit is all dried in place. But you can see how busy the cockpit looks there. Just with those extra resin bits and the bit of wiring, it makes such a difference, and it's a wonderful set and a bit of a must, I think. So there we are, all done. What I'll do now is just leave you with a few photographs, and then I'll show you what Rick's been up to. Okay, on to Rick's progress then. So we had a chat a few weeks ago, and Rick didn't really know what aeroplane he was going to do until I showed him this photo, and then he got very excited. We're thinking about doing a sort of an airfield thing, revetment, maybe a crashed aeroplane being recovered, but he decided to go for this aeroplane that crashed on a Sicilian beach by a chap called Claude Weaver, an American, which is pretty apt. And this is where Rick's at, so it's really interesting to see how an armour modeller goes about doing an aeroplane. And so far he's done a cracking job. So go check out Rick's channel, his propaganda channel, for his updates. He's also got a Patreon where you can get some sort of bonus footage and get a bit of a head start. So in the next part we're going to build the airframe. It's fairly straightforward, but there's a few little tips and tricks sort of out of sequence which you may find useful. And that's Rick's, so he's quite far advanced as well. Until the next time, happy modelling, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, bye bye.